Archbishop Cordileone and Bishop DeGrood are next, but first some news to share with you. A U.S. Bishops' Conference official has publicly expressed support for the Biden campaign's choice of Senator Kamala Harris as Biden's running mate. Assistant Director of African American Affairs, Donna Tolliver Grimes, told the Catholic News Service, quote, "We the community need good news, and this is just wonderful." She believes that Harris is really deserving and brings a lot to the table. Now, Senator Kamala Harris is well known for views opposing Catholic teaching. She promotes abortion on demand and fully supports LGBT rights, which frequently clash with the religious liberty of Christians. In response, Director of Communications for the USCCB, James Rogers, issued a statement distancing the conference from Grimes, stating, quote, "At no point are conference staff authorized to speak on behalf of the bishops in support of or in opposition to candidates for elected office." So far, the USCCB has taken no action against Grimes, unlike its treatment of the bishop's former spokesman, Judy Keene. You'll remember Keene was forced to leave the conference after she posted tweets praising President Donald Trump and opposing Democrats. The Vatican has reduced the restitution for a disgraced West Virginia bishop accused of sexual and financial misconduct. Bishop Michael Bransfield, formerly of the Diocese of Wheeling, stepped down in late 2018 after allegations that he took church funds for personal use and sexually harassed seminarians and young priests. A Vatican investigation found the charges to be credible. A restitution plan had been drawn up, ordering Bransfield to pay nearly $800,000 back to the diocese, money to be set aside for abuse victims. Also part of the deal was to be an apology to diocesan staff, the faithful, and the victims for the severe emotional and spiritual harm caused. Instead, the figure has been reduced to $441,000. And what about the apology? Bransfield's letter, dated August 15th, states he is sorry for any scandal or wonderment caused by words or actions attributed to me, end quote. Two Wisconsin bishops led hundreds of faithful in a Eucharistic procession through the riot-ravaged streets of Madison recently on the Feast of the Assumption. The Unite Wisconsin Patriotic Rosary Rally was led by Archbishop Jerome Listecki of Milwaukee and Bishop Donald Hying of Madison. The procession made its way through the streets of downtown Madison to the state capitol, where 75 businesses were vandalized and looted. Organizers told LifeSite News that the procession sought to counter the fear and confusion so prevalent in the wake of race-related protests and rioting. It is good to see some true unity for a change. As state and local governments reassess lockdown measures and health orders seem to be unequally applied, dioceses across the nation continue to face restrictions on worship. Joining me to discuss this and more is the Archbishop of San Francisco, Salvatore Cordileone. Archbishop, welcome.
Thank you.
The state of California has very stringent COVID regulations in place. In your city of San Francisco, outside religious services and funerals even are allowed only to have 12 people in attendance. Indoor masses are prohibited. Yet protests of at least 100 people are allowed to continue unhindered, and there are secular establishments, shopping malls and other places where people are allowed to freely roam. Now, this past Saturday, on the Solemnity of the Assumption of Mary, you got creative in the plaza of your cathedral. What did you do?
I decided that if we can only have 12 people outdoors at a Mass, we have a very large plaza in front of our cathedral, that we would have multiple Masses simultaneously so we could gather as many people as possible while also respecting the local health order.
So you had 4 other priests help you, and there were continuing Masses at the same time.
They were simultaneous, yes. We had 5 Masses on the plaza. The plaza can hold many more than that. We look forward to continuing this. We began on the feast day of our cathedral. Our cathedral is dedicated to St. Mary of the Assumption, so on the Solemnity of the Assumption, last Saturday is when we started this. And then we did it the following day, Sunday at 9 o'clock. We will be doing this every Sunday at 9 o'clock until the situation changes.
But Archbishop, how long can you continue this? I mean, these are arbitrary rules. They're not evenly applied. There's little scientific predicate here to substantiate them. Are we seeing an infringement of people's First Amendment rights to worship in your city, in your state?
That's what I have been maintaining all along. And I may not be an expert in constitutional law, but I don't think one needs to be an expert to realize that. And in fact, the Calvary Chapel case out of Nevada, where the Supreme Court, 5-4 majority, has denied the injunction to allow the church to have indoor services. What Justice Alito and the others said in their dissenting opinions said the same thing. He made the point that I've been making all along, that people have a First Amendment right to worship. They don't have a First Amendment right, in the case of Nevada, to gamble in a casino or to go into bars. In our case here, to make purchases in a store inside. That's not a constitutionally protected right, unlike the right to worship. I do recognize that the state has some authority with regard to the church in terms of protecting public safety, right? And just like when we build a church, the building codes that we have to build according to those codes.
Sure.
Yeah, the state doesn't tell us how to arrange the liturgical space. So likewise, I accept that the state has some authority in telling us what we have to do to protect our people, but it can't be so restrictive as to effectively ban public worship, which is the case right now.
Yeah, I agree with you, Archbishop, and I think that was a poorly decided decision. I mean, there's no way you can make the case that these rules are not being unevenly applied. That's the constitutional standard. And they are, when you say casinos can be packed out, but you can't have indoor church services, this is absurd. It's just absurd. Well, what's the spiritual impact among your people, your priests, your laity, given these restrictions? What are they telling you?
I'm concerned that the parish priests are beginning to feel some isolation. For a parish priest, our vocation is to be ministering with our people, being with our people. So it's been difficult. I'm hearing with many of the priests that they don't have the opportunity to physically gather with their people. I've been grateful for the creativity the parish priests have had to try to reach their people through live streaming masses, Zoom Bible studies, and other such things. Here we have 3 counties in the Archdiocese. In California, a lot of the regulations are up to the county. In the other 2 counties, there's more openness for gatherings. For example, in Marin County, they can have outdoor services with up to 100. In San Mateo County, there's no limit on the number. So you brought up the point about the science. There doesn't seem to be a scientific basis for a limit of 12 people.
No, it's just these are just arbitrary numbers that they throw. 20% capacity, 50%. There's no science to demonstrate that this, as opposed to that, is safer. It doesn't exist. Now, you've asked the priests in your diocese to say up to 3 masses per Sunday due to the 12-person limit in San Francisco in order to accommodate the demand for worshipers who wish to attend outdoor masses. How have the priests responded?
Some priests were already doing that. Others, I think, are beginning to do it now more. There wasn't, I came to realize that this wasn't happening at all of the parishes. So I just wanted to give them some encouragement and also to warn them to be aware that there are people observing what we're doing. And if they perceive any infraction or if it seems to be them to be an infraction, they will report it to the city and will be cited. So I wanted to urge the priests to be cautious, to follow the health regulations, but do everything they can within these restrictions to provide the sacraments and especially the Mass for their people.
Archbishop, as I've been watching and listening closely over the last few months, obviously we're seeing people marching in the streets, even violently, because they feel there's injustice in their lives. What's wrong at this point with the Catholic people and even the clergy, as they have in years before, undertaking acts of civil disobedience and saying, you know what, I've got a plaza that can accommodate 300 people, and I'm welcoming 300 people onto the plaza this weekend? What's to stop you from doing that? And does that rattle in the back of your mind, given the prolonged restrictions with very little basis other than the caprice of the officials?
The prolonged restrictions make me very worried. I'm very concerned about that. There is the option of civil disobedience, but there are consequences such as being excoriated in the media and in public opinion. There's also the danger of division within the local church. There are those who would not agree with it, and it could cause a lot of contention between what could become warring factions within the church. So it's a desire to not to create or aggravate any disunity, and to I want to, and I've tried to position us as wanting to be partners with the local government and doing our part to help assist them in getting the spread of this virus under control. That's why I've urged the priests to observe the health order, but be creative, providing the sacraments, to constantly remind their people what they have to do to be safe, about 6 feet social distancing and washing their hands and so forth. So I've wanted to show that we want to be partners and we want to be cooperative, but this prolonged lockdown on worship is something that's very worrisome to me. And like I said, other people are exercising civil disobedience. That's not out of the picture, but it has potential dire consequences as well.
A couple of weeks ago, Bishop Tobin of Providence, Rhode Island, tweeted the following. He said, "It's clear that on a practical level, the discipline of attending Sunday Mass is gone. Post-pandemic, we'll have to invite people back to church by creative outreach and by emphasizing the importance of Christian community, the Word of God, and the Holy Eucharist." Do you agree, and is the discipline of attending Sunday Mass virtually gone?
I worry that may be the case. It was already, of course, quite diminished with the drop-off of Mass attendance. Many Catholics not having a sense of an obligation to attend Mass. It was already a problem, and I fear it will be aggravated all the more after this pandemic, people getting out of the habit of going to church. On the other hand, there is, I believe, a minority of Catholics who they're anxious to get back to church, and they will do so with great fervor when they have the opportunity to do that. So maybe this is realizing that vision, or that idea that maybe we'll be fewer in numbers, but much stronger and more fervent.
Well, Your Excellency, thank you for the time. Thank you for your creativity and initiative and being willing to innovate around these onerous restrictions for your people. I think I got tons of emails this week when the story broke and your video was released. So thank you for being here and sharing it with us.
Okay, thanks for having me on the show.